Hello, this is Kristen. Welcome back to my series where I'm talking casually about alcohol and alcohol problems. And today I wanted to make a short video. Let's see how short I can make it. About why you can't quit drinking while you're drinking. Seems obvious, but a lot of people have the idea that they can reduce drinking in an effort to stop drinking. Kind of like a taper. Kind of like not going cold turkey, trying to be reasonable about it. And it often doesn't work because of the person's already established psychological and emotional dependence on alcohol. This is my simple chart about how the disease of alcohol use disorder or alcoholism progresses in one direction most of the time. A person, once they've established some emotional and psychological dependence, they are not ever able to go back to a prior level of drinking and sustain it at that level. On this progression, as I've explained in other videos, we've got this whole area of time that is more about this development of an emotional and a psychological dependence on alcohol, where the person begins to increasingly center alcohol in their life as a kind of solution to problems, a solution to how they feel. And over that time period, they are moving in the direction of eventual physical dependence, because as they need to increase how much they drink to achieve the same effect, as they're increasing it, as perhaps they're increasing frequency of consumption of alcohol, they are modifying their body over time, very slowly at times, sometimes not so slowly. Everyone's very individual with this. But the body is being changed, the brain and the nervous system are adjusting to the input of alcohol, which is progressing the disease until there's a threshold where the body stops doing certain things and starts to rely on alcohol to perform those functions. And now the person will not be able to stop drinking without going into withdrawal symptoms. And there's also almost all the time, no way, I don't know that anyone's ever done it, but there's no way to go from becoming physically dependent, quitting drinking, and then resuming drinking and thinking you're going to go back over here to where you enjoyed the kind of control of a one drink or half a beverage and stopping, and then living your life over here again. I haven't seen it. If someone has seen it and can attest to it, let me know in the comments. But I've never seen it. What happens is very quickly the person then goes right back over there, and the drinking is out of control at that point. So sometimes people are over here still, and they know that they're drinking problematically. If you've watched other videos I've shared, you might hear some things that you say, oh yeah, I'm having those issues, or yes, I do view alcohol that way. I do mostly view it as a friend or a solution to changing my feeling state because my anxiety is so uncomfortable, or how I feel about myself is so uncomfortable and intolerable. And I know that alcohol helps me fairly immediately, and I recognize that, and I would like to consider not drinking, but I'm not ready to stop drinking. I'm going to reduce my drinking. And perhaps there's people who entertain the idea that, they're going to do it tomorrow, or they're going to cut their drinking in half, and then they're going to quit. They might even be physically dependent and have this kind of thinking. So, physically dependent, the person must drink alcohol to stay out of withdrawal symptoms. Withdrawal symptoms can be fatal And so, believe me, it's highly anxiety provoking to the person. The body does not feel okay if too many hours have gone by and alcohol has not been put into the body. And so, say someone's in that state and they also want to quit drinking, but they'd rather kind of do this taper idea. Okay. So, let's say we reduce drinking. We have less alcohol tomorrow. And let's say we set up some rules of engagement with alcohol. You can set up your rules while you're sober. You can do your best to do that. And perhaps you'll go to a level of a more moderate, low risk drinking amount. That could be challenging just because of the fact that if you've built up your tolerance to a point where you need, say, 8 servings of something, beer or wine, or hopefully not 8 servings of hard liquor, but there's no, it can go much higher than that too. And then you say, well, let me cut it in half. Now, you cut it in half, you go less, and your body is not going to experience the relief that it's accustomed to. The body is going to already be, perhaps if you're over here, it wouldn't be like an actual withdrawal symptom, but it could sort of be that way on that level for you, because if you're unable to have the amount of alcohol you need to achieve the same effect that the 8 or 9 servings was getting you, now you're going through your night or your day not chill, not feeling relaxed, not feeling satisfied that you got relief from something that's intolerable to you. So, but you've still put the alcohol in there. So the body's still having to process it and deal with it, and it's still getting the signal that alcohol is still going in. And okay, so you try that for a while, maybe you're able to do that. But, and let's say you successfully do it repeatedly, where you've cut the amount in half, and maybe you've sustained this half amount for, say, a couple weeks or something, and you're thinking about then stepping it back again. But most people don't even get to this point, to be honest, okay? Because when we drink alcohol, our inhibitions are lowered. In other words, the thinking processes that are used to make decisions, to determine whether something is going to have bad effects in the future, bad outcomes in the future, something that we can kind of think through and say, no, that's not a good idea for me, that's a no. That part of the brain isn't used as much after we've put alcohol into the body. So say you had a plan, I'm only going to have this number of beverages tonight, but after you've had those, your inhibition is now lowered. You're much more likely to change your mind. You're much more likely to go against the new standards you set for yourself and the new rules you set for yourself, your goals. It's just highly unlikely that you're going to be able to maintain your new idea, your new goal to achieve quitting drinking eventually while you're drinking, because the drinking itself is interfering with your thought process, your decision-making process, your judgment. Additionally, while you're still drinking, it's still having the negative effects on you. In other words, your body is now generally more anxious. The stress response system has been altered. It's still being reinforced. The changes are being reinforced as you continue to drink, even if you're drinking in a lesser amount. It's just that the body is then getting perhaps frustrated. Perhaps you could, I don't think it's possible, but perhaps you could lower your tolerance. That would be the theory that you'd be working with here. That, oh, I'm gonna cut it in half, and I'm gonna go back here, and I'm gonna get back to where I had almost no tolerance for alcohol, and I could have the effect of feeling relief after one or two drinks. I just haven't seen anyone achieve the going backwards after they have really gotten established and reinforced over time the emotional and physical dependence on alcohol. Also, how you think about alcohol. If that doesn't change, reducing your drinking in order to quit drinking is not going to work, because you have not yet started to think about your life and yourself in the way that you need to sustain living without alcohol. You would have to change how you view alcohol. People who are struggling to not drink alcohol have already become highly emotionally attached to this liquid. And it's not just like an attachment, like, oh, I love to do this thing and let me do this, and like all like pleasure stuff. That isn't, it's much worse than that. It's much deeper than that, because as I've said in other videos, the whole reason why a person would have started to use alcohol to change their state was in the beginning quite innocent and understandable, because it's often the case that the person was, in their natural state of things, very anxious, perhaps living in chronic stress for years. Their nervous system was already perhaps always dysregulated. And to go from that, for whatever the reasons may be, to getting profound relief from drinking alcohol would set up a attachment to this device that is deeply emotional and important to the person. And it doesn't mean that, oh, you know, this is all, it's all positive benefits the person's getting, but that doesn't matter, that there's negative side effects. Because to feel as though you can't tolerate how you feel in your own body and in your mind about yourself in life, that is extremely painful. And so even if alcohol use comes with a lot of negative consequences, a person will still have a real hard time seeing the negative consequences and being able to, do the math, so to speak, to make a decision to remove that thing from their life when it's the one thing that they found that was reliably able to soothe how they feel. It's not a good feeling to feel like you can't tolerate how you feel. It's not a good feeling to be highly anxious, to be highly, perhaps feeling insecure, and things like that. And so it's understandable that this problem would have progressed for that person. So thinking about alcohol starts to become highly specific to that person. Even if it's not overtly conscious in their mind with very specific thoughts about alcohol, there's a feeling that they have about it. There's a draw to it. A lot of this has to do with the changes that take place in the brain and the nervous system, as I've said in other videos. But see, the person themselves is not going to be able to differentiate between what thought they're having, that they're noticing within themselves, that Is that an original thought of my original self, or is this a thought that is really coming out of this process of the development and the progression of this disease, where the brain is going to prompt you to go get that? There will be dopamine released to motivate you to go get that. And that's going to come with thoughts that seem like the person themselves is thinking those thoughts. Rationalizing drinking, minimizing negative effects of drinking, all kinds of crazy thinking about this. So, to think that you can reduce drinking in order to stop drinking, to think that you can stop drinking while you're still drinking, without going through the work of really doing a deep dive analysis into how you view alcohol and what it means to you. Reducing alcohol to quit is not going to work. Again, there's gonna come a night. If you're still drinking on a regular basis, even if you've reduced a lot, I've seen it enough times, okay? It's nearly impossible for a person to sustain a reduction in their drinking, because there will come a night where it spikes again. And then when that happens, believe me, the next day or the next 2 days, the body is going to say, let's keep it at this level and more. Okay? That's how it works. And none of this is anyone's fault. Okay? So that has to go too. The idea that you're not strong enough, that you don't have the willpower, etc. No, you just haven't gotten to the point in life where you realize that there's nothing wrong with you. You realize that you don't have to feel stressed, you don't have to feel anxious, you don't have to feel insecure or worthless or any of these things. You just haven't learned that yet. And it's not your fault that you came to believe that about yourself, or that you may even believe that about lots of people. You may be highly judgmental. That's not your fault that you were taught to see the world that way. You could have developed that way of thinking just by having it modeled for you, or perhaps through your own traumatic experiences that caused you to conclude that there are, people who should be judged, or we're all useless unless we're useful, things like that. So if you're struggling with alcohol and you know it, start to think about what does alcohol mean to me? How do I see it? What is it to me? How important is it to me emotionally? How attached am I emotionally to alcohol? In reality, alcohol is meaningless. It's neutral. It's liquid. It does a certain thing to human bodies, and that's it. There's nothing special about alcohol. It is not a requirement for life. Water is. Okay, water is not alcohol. Alcohol is not water. But look at that. If you're struggling with your drinking, think about, wait, do I value alcohol over water? It's an interesting question to ponder, because it could reveal a profound distortion in your perception and how you are valuing things, and to really analyze it when you're not drinking, hopefully. So hopefully that's a helpful thought. If you want to stop drinking, start looking at how you feel about it, start looking at what you believe about it, and come up with some method you're going to use to quit drinking, to stop drinking, to removing it from your life. Because that's the only thing that works. Once it's gotten a foothold and it's moving this way, you can't go back to onesie twosie. That doesn't happen. Doesn't work that way. This disease does not work that way. Okay. Okay, hope that's helpful, and thank you so much for watching.